Welcome, everyone, to Buddha Center. It's wonderful to be with you tonight to talk about Lama Tsongkhapa's stages of the path to enlightenment. I feel so fortunate to be able to share this with you. Before we get started, let's begin by setting a proper motivation. Let's begin by making our minds turn into the most beautiful mind in the universe, even if it's in a contrived way, even if we have to invoke reasons for it to come into our continuum. That's fine, because eventually we'll be able to manifest this mind in a spontaneous way, and it will move to all sentient beings without any obstruction whatsoever. We're so fortunate to have all of the stages that are necessary for us to practice in order to generate this incredibly beautiful mind. We're so absolutely fortunate to have these instructions passed down to us from Buddha Shakyamuni, like the equalizing and exchanging self with others practice, passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Arya Manjushri, Arya Nagarjuna, and Bodhisattva Shantideva, and the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment practice, passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Arya Sangha, Arya Acharya Basu Bandhu, and down through all of the extensive deeds lineage, landing in our laps. And we're so fortunate to be able to have these instructions, which will show us how to become bodhisattvas, how to become then the most reliable guides in the universe by relying on the bodhisattva path, the only path that leads to complete Buddhahood, where one will have a freedom from the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience, which means, in a simpler way, one will have complete fearlessness. One will be freed from all of the sufferings of cyclic existence altogether, because he or she will have removed the afflictive obstructions. And one will have the highest amount of happiness possible because one will have removed the obstructions to omniscience. And this is what a Buddha is, a being who is completely perfected and perfect in every way possible. And we have this potential. We have Buddha nature. It's just a matter of engaging in the practices that allow us to manifest our full potential. And the way we enter into that Mahayana practice is through the door of bodhicitta. So tonight we're going to be looking at, again, the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, and looking at under a magnifying glass. And we've arrived at this section on great compassion. And we know that the Buddha has these excellent qualities that make him or her a perfect object of refuge. They have fearlessness. They have skillful means to be able to help us. They have great compassion, and they don't want our material things. All they want is our practice. They have these incredible, credible qualities that we too will possess. And when we look at the great compassion that the Buddha possesses, this is so important that we generate it in our mind. And why is it so important to generate? When we look at the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment, we're currently on this step of great compassion. And we know in Acharya Chandrakirti's text, the entrance to the middle way, or supplement to the middle way, it says that compassion is important in the beginning because it's like the seed of the perfect harvest of Buddhahood. It's important in the middle because it's like the water that makes the soil friable for the growth of this seed. So in the middle, it's important. And it's important in the end to be able to produce this completely always produce the fruit of helping others, this Buddhahood, this fruit which is achieved through this practice, through this process of the Bodhisattva path, will continuously feed sentient beings' needs, will continuously allow them to learn what the truth of suchness is, to be able to discover for themselves the realizations that you've discovered yourself as a Buddha. And this is what the Buddha can do for us. So let's begin by setting a motivation that we're here tonight. We're here at this teaching for one reason, one specific thing that we want to achieve. We want to achieve a freedom from suffering, and we want to achieve the most high, the best, most perfect amount of happiness possible. And within that, we can then be the most reliable guide to others, because we'll have known the path, because we'll have gone through it, and we will achieve an omniscience that will know exactly how to help them. So before we do the refuge prayer today, I want to read a couple of things, but let's just begin by trying to, in whatever way we can, set this motivation that I'm here this evening to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Now imagine those beings in the space in front of you, those enlightened beings, those beings who possess those excellent qualities that you would like to possess yourself. Those beings, when we say, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the Buddha, the perfectly enlightened being who's removed the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience, the Dharma, those uninterrupted paths and those true cessations within the continuums of superiors, and the Sangha, those Arya beings, those beings who have seen emptiness directly, those noble beings, those superior beings who've seen emptiness directly, who know exactly what it is we need to see and can tell us how to see it. So when we think of the beings in the space in front of us, these beings symbolize the beings we will become. These beings in the space in front of us, we imagine they're enlightened beings. We imagine that they're the Buddha. We imagine that they're the Dharma, those beings that possess these realizations of true paths and true cessations within their minds. We imagine that they're the Sangha, the beings who've seen emptiness and know exactly what it is that we need to see. So when we imagine these beings in the space in front of us, we're imagining them as role models, as guides for us to then become the refuge, for us to then become the refuge field. So when we think of the refuge field in the space in front of us, we go for refuge because we're seeking protection. We're seeking protection from something. And when we look at the different ways to look at this protection, and we look at how refuge is actually caused, it begins with a fear. And that fear is a fear of cyclic existence because of an understanding of what cyclic existence is, an understanding of what the suffering of suffering is, and the suffering of change is, and the pervasive condition suffering is. An understanding of what all of this is will make you want to emerge from that situation and be fearful of having to take a forced rebirth again and again and again beyond your control. A lack of freedom is misery. So you develop a fear for this process, and then you look to, how would I not have to experience this process? Is there any being in the universe who has exited this process, this thing that I'm so afraid of? Who has exited the process that I'm afraid of? And that's the Buddha. The Buddha has exited that process. The Buddha has exited not only the process of having to dwell in cyclic existence and be fearful of that, but the Buddha has exited the process of fear that the Bodhisattvas have, and that's the fear of not being able to help others completely, the fear of the obstructions to omniscience that keep him or her from reaching the highest amount of happiness and being able to help every single sentient being in the universe. So when we go for refuge and we say that this first cause of refuge is fear, it's a fear that we can't achieve our highest potential. We will be stuck in cyclic existence. The ones we love are stuck in cyclic existence. So this fear isn't the kind of fear like a horror movie like we think of, like, it's an intelligent kind of fear that recognizes that cyclic existence is not something to enjoy. It's something to dislike. It's something to fear being thrown into again and again and again. The obstructions to omniscience are something to fear because they make us not able to truly help others. They make us not able to, because we haven't reached our highest potential, know how to make others reach their highest potential. And then if there's this being in the universe who's transcended this fear and at the kind of gross level, the fear of cyclic existence, and then at the highest level, the fear of not being able to be the most reliable guide in the universe, if there's someone who's transcended those two things, then they are a being that I should listen to. And the second cause of going for refuge is faith. Understanding One, what your current state is and not liking it, not wanting to be involved with it, understanding what samsara is, 8 sufferings, 6 sufferings, 3 sufferings, understanding your current state very, very well. Just understanding it beyond a shadow of a doubt, and understanding that others are in that current state beyond a shadow of a doubt. And that the being who can show you how to fix that situation, how to fix yours and how to help others fix their situation, is the most reliable guide in the universe, the Buddha. So the 2 causes of refuge are fear, an intelligent fear, and a faith, an intelligent faith that you've done your research. You've checked into this. You've seen that based on everything that you've read, that the Buddha is the most reliable guide in the universe and is an object that you should go for refuge to, because it makes sense, because he or she can show you how to get what you want. And what you want and what everyone wants is fearlessness and infinite happiness. And within that infinite happiness, what everyone wants is to be able to help the people that they love. And Buddhas love everyone. Buddhists don't see some as near and some as far. Buddhists see everyone as equally an object of their love and an object of their compassion. And this is what we'll learn about when we learn about compassion this evening. So imagine these beings, these enlightened beings, these representations, these, beings who've come to show you what the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha really is. Our teachers come to show us what a being who is, an enlightened being who possesses this wisdom is like. So imagine these beings in the space in front of you: Buddha Shakyamuni, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the wish-fulfilling jewel in our world, His Holiness Khenso Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, my root teacher, imagining holy beings in the world right now, like Umzala Geshe Aga Rinpoche and Geshe Dorje Damdula Rinpoche, again, Jeffrey Hopkins, beings, any being that you consider a holy being, and consider them in the space in front of you, in extensive deeds lineage, the profound view lineage, the lineage of blessings, all of the enlightened beings of the Nyingma Kagyu Sakya Galup, and all of the enlightened masters, such as Panchen Sonam Dragpa, Gonchu Jimmy Wampo, Janja Rupi George, Jayan Gabi Lodru, Jayan Sheba, going to Jayan Sheba, all the Panchen Lamas, all the Dalai Lamas, these holy beings, imagining all the 4 classes of Tantra and the 35 Buddhas and the protector beings, imagining them all in the space in front of you. These beings are here to protect you. They're here to guide you. They're here to show you how to achieve enlightenment. When we look at this word, I'm receiving blessings from the merit field. This really means that I've somehow figured out how to manifest my magnificent potential. My magnificent potential, my Buddha nature is growing, is maturing. This proliferating Buddha nature will eventually turn into the wisdom mind of a Buddha. This mind that I possess now will turn into the wisdom mind of the Buddha. And the emptiness of this mind that I possess now will turn into the natural Dharmakaya of the Buddha. So I possess everything right now that will transform and turn into the Buddha. And this is an amazing fact that we have to know about ourselves. And we shouldn't think, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that, because we can become a Buddha. We can become a perfect being. We have Buddha nature. We have this mind that is in the nature of clear light and unsullied. The stains in it are adventitious, meaning the stains in it are add-ons. Our mind is not in the nature of being stained. If it was, then it would naturally be stained, but our mind is not naturally stained. There's things that just need to be extracted from it for it to reach its full potential, and we've just never worked on the antidote to the problem, worked on the antidote to the stuff that's, all the dirt that's all over this perfect jewel of our mind that needs to just be cleaned off and cleansed of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. And that cleansing takes place through the pathways that we're talking about over and over again every single week. The teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity, and the teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and the teachings for beings of great capacity. These are the pathways that we're talking about that allow us to wash off, like take a power washer to this really, really dirty, diamond that we have in our mind, this perfect, this perfect, clear light mind that just has the ability to reflect, has the ability to reflect and know. This mind that's clear and knowing can reflect and know whatever dependently arises. And we have to figure out, when we look at dependent arising and we look at things that are momentary within space and time, all of those things have causes. And bad things have causes and good things have causes. And if we can figure out, based on these teachings, how to transform our mind into a mind that sounds like, acts like, talks like, when I listen to it, it sounds like these books, then the cleansing takes place, and this mind begins, to be transformed. So we can take this mind, and we put these teachings, into it, and then our mind starts to work more like these teachings, as I was saying. And then as that's happening, the constrictions and the dirt on our mind starts to get cleared off, starts to get cleaned off. And then when we see emptiness directly, there's an actual, instead of just a suppression of dirt, there's an actual cleansing and a removal of some of the dirt that will never come back again. And then we'll have to see emptiness again and again and again and again and again to keep cleaning that dirt off. And hopefully we'll do that as bodhisattvas. So when we realize that emptiness, it will be ultimate bodhicitta. And that means that that emptiness, combined with that ripening path of bodhicitta, will allow us to get rid of not only the afflictive obstructions that keep us in samsara, but get rid of the obstructions to omniscience, the cognitive obscurations that keep us from being the most reliable, happiest guide in the universe. So we have the pathways, we have these teachings, and these beings that we imagine the space in front of us have done it. They were just like us before, all screwed up, not thinking right, grasping at things incorrectly, being attached to things that don't have any kind of basis that's worthy of attachment, and hating things that don't have any basis that's worthy of this hatred. So we've been thinking for a long time in ways that don't tally with the goals we have of happiness and freedom from suffering. But we just need to apply right thinking to our wrong thinking. And enough right thinking, we put enough right thinking against our wrong thinking, and then eventually that wrong thinking will be no more. And as I said, as we see emptiness directly more and more and more, which I have not, I'm not saying if you do this like I did, I'm saying if you do this like these enlightened beings did, I have faith that if I do this like these enlightened beings did, that I'll be able to achieve the same results, because I have the same recipe, I have the same material that they started with, that they were working with. I have a mind that can transform. So they had a mind that could transform. I haven't transformed my mind. They have transformed my mind. I didn't know how to transform my mind. Now I'm learning how to transform my mind. Please keep telling me how to transform my mind so that I can transform my magnificent potential. So a lot of this stuff is over mysticized sometimes. It has to be mystical and fancy, and like there's something else going on than what's really going on. But when we start to analyze what's really going on, it's a very logical process that we're trying to go through. We're trying to use these beings as our example, and we're trying to connect our mind with beings who are a good example in all of our lives. We're trying to connect our mind to beings who've written things that can actually change our minds, that can actually transform our magnificent potential. Again, this is what blessing means in Tibetan. It doesn't mean that someone's outside with water washing away your sins. It doesn't mean that the Buddha blesses you and took away some of your suffering, or the Buddha blessed you and then gave you his or her realization somehow. No, the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, they come and teach the truth of suchness, and that's how beings are liberated. This is what the Buddha came to tell us. And then we transform. We discover the truth. The truth isn't blessed on us, but the Buddhas do everything that they can, and the Bodhisattvas do everything that they can in order to get us on the right track, in order to show us exactly what it is we need to read, what we need to transform. And we're so fortunate that we have a connection to this tradition that explains this beginningless lives concept, and explains that our mind has no end, and explains that samsara has no beginning, but explains that samsara can have an end, and explains that once we achieve nirvana, there will be no end. But samsara can have an end, because nirvana is the actual truth that isn't deceptive. And as soon as all of the deception is removed, there's nothing more in the ingredient box to be deceived by. And this is what we have to learn about. And this is why we're here tonight. And this is why I keep studying this material, to try to learn what that means. So imagining all of this holy beings in the space in front of us. And now imagine, we said, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. What could we do? What could we do to start getting on that track that would make us into a being that would send bodies out to every being in the universe and help them in weird ways, and be able to speak to them in their own individual languages in a perfect way and say just the perfect right amount of stuff to them? What would make that happen? How would I create causes for that? That could do the sorts of things, that would know exactly what to say and when to say it, and would want to, and would only want to help. How would I become someone who only wants to help? How would I become someone who would know exactly how to help? I would do so by leaving imprints in my mind and leaving little bits and pieces in my mind that are concordant with that result. So this is why, now that you've said you want to become a Buddha, for who? For the sake of all sentient beings. And when it says for the sake of all sentient beings, we learn that the Buddha doesn't see anyone as far away or anyone as close. There's no bias there. So we have to learn how to create that. So we practice these things where we pretend we invite all sentient beings, even the ones that we dislike. We see how our mind reacts when we invite those beings that we dislike. We see how our mind reacts when we invite those people that we really like and how we want to really help them. And we see how our mind reacts when we see a stranger and we don't really feel any particular need to do much of anything. So these are all things that we're doing in order to evaluate our spiritual progress, in order to evaluate whether or not we're applying these teachings in an appropriate way. Because if we are, we'll be seeing some sort of results in our mind. If we're looking for some sort of blessing to just magically take place without having the wisdom arisen from hearing, contemplation and meditation, or hearing analysis and meditation, if we're looking for some way to evolve other than that work of listening to a lot of teachings and reading a lot of texts and then analyzing them to see if it makes sense, and then meditating on them and realizing them, there's no other way. There's no magic process. We have to hear the right information. We have to make sure that we're hearing qualified things. We're so eager to find some shortcut that we're willing to even listen to things that don't make sense. We'll read about that in a minute. We're willing to listen to things that don't make sense because we're just so eager. We're not willing to put the work in. But unfortunately, nothing huge has ever come about with a tiny, tiny result. Only huge results come about through huge causes. And if we think that we're special, or we have some special blessing that we don't need to engage in the same work that our teachers did, we're highly mistaken. And if we don't connect with the information, the accurate information that Buddha taught, passed down through the Nalanda tradition, in the Sanskrit tradition, anyway, when we're speaking of the Sanskrit tradition. Of course, there's the Theravadan tradition also, but we're in this particular lineage is within the Sanskrit tradition that I know of, passed down through these Nalanda masters. Is this Dharma something that they've really looked at and commented on so that they can help us to understand it? Did they find the words that we're studying now worthy of contemplation and analysis? These are the words we should be studying, the words that Arya Nagarjuna and Arya Sangha and Acharya Basu Bandhu found worthy to analyze. Bodhisattva Shantideva, the words we're studying line up with the words of those incredible masters, as it's being passed down. And the only way we'll know is if we put our work in and we do our studying and we don't have blind faith and we don't just take things at face value, because we've been consumed by ignorance since beginningless time. And when I say we, if folks are like me, that ignorance is really strong, really, really strong. And simple shortcuts and things that are just a little bit closer to wisdom, but still ignorance, can sound really good. But if you don't have the exact understanding of emptiness, it's not possible to cut the root of cyclic existence. You can stay in a cave. You might even be able to live to 300 years, and you could meditate on the clear light mind and some sort of subjective clear light bliss that you're achieving. But if you don't recognize the emptiness of that mind and know what that non-affirming negative is, there won't be any chance that what you're doing will lead to things other than cyclic existence. The only liberating path is a very precise, specific kind of emptiness. And that's the emptiness of intrinsic existence that the Buddha talked about at the second turning of the wheel of Dharma in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain. So imagine that we invite all sentient beings here, beginning with our closest beings who are closest to us, and then neutral beings, and then beings that we find difficult, and then invite everyone else in the universe here. All the hell beings of the hot hells, cold hells, surrounding hells, and occasional hells, all of the hungry ghosts that have all of the problems with internal problems and external problems, all of the animals that live in fear and act as slaves for us, that live in the water, that live in fear in the darkness of the ocean, and then live on the earth, those animals that are taken to slaughter one by one, and seeing that the one before them is gone, and seeing that there'll be the next one, and living in this fear, being used because of ignorance, and just having just desirous objects only to go around and look after, and then wasting a life, and then not having any kind of mind state at the end of the life that would produce anything except another lower realm rebirth for the most part. And getting out of those lower realms that we just talked about, it's extremely difficult because of the immense amount of suffering and ignorance that's going on while we're there. And we've done this since beginningless time, and all sentient beings have done this since beginningless time. And how nice it is that we have a chance to say, haven't we had enough? And I've had enough. Have you had enough? Have you had enough of being separated from loved ones? And have you had enough of sickness? Have you had enough of not getting what you want? These are the questions we have to ask yourself. You have to ask yourself, I have to ask myself, if we're really, really tired of this. We think about the human existence and all, we know what those problems are here. And the demigods we can read about and see all the jealousy. We know folks that have a lot of stuff but are just so jealous. In the gods realm, where you could have all this wonderful stuff, but maybe your neighbor has something just a little bit more, and all you care about is desirous objects in there. So you feel stress. You could be a god and stressed out because you don't have something that is an object of desire that's as good as someone else's. And this is what we create every day when we walk around this earth and decide that things that aren't important are. We decide that everything but the Dharma is important. And then we decide the Dharma is important. We tell everybody the Dharma is important, but what the kind of emphasis, the kind of importance that we place on it in our lives is very minimal compared to the amount of importance we place on everything else in our lives. And the only thing that can actually help us achieve the things that we want for ourselves and the people that we love is the Dharma. Yet we put the least amount of time into that. And we put the most amount of time into things that will cause us to be reborn into those realms that I spoke of. And then if we get our concentration to this highest point, we could maybe be born into the God's realm of the form and formless realm, and then still be in the a container of afflictions, and just suppressing some bad stuff for a little while, just like Buddha Shakyamuni's last two teachers, Acharya Alara Kalam and Acharya Udreka, who had achieved high concentrations level that you can achieve the highest ones. Buddha didn't just sit down and clear his mind out. His last two teachers had done that, and Buddha knew that that wasn't enough. Buddha knew that the root of cyclic existence hadn't been cut, and Buddha knew that there was something more that had to be discovered, and that was the emptiness of all phenomena. This is what the Buddha found he had to discover in order to really, really achieve the goal that his last two teachers had thought they had achieved mistakenly. And we can be mistaken. If Buddha went to some beings that were, Buddha Shakyamuni would have never gone to beings that weren't like the highest, holiest beings in the universe at the time. And I know I'm not the highest, holiest being in the universe at this time. So I can be deceived very easily if I'm not kept on track by these very accurate teachings. And this is something that you learn as you look at these texts more and more and more, how to not be deceived. So now imagine that this place that we're at, we have all sentient beings here, and we have all of the merit field here. Again, role models, beings who've achieved what we want to achieve, and then sentient beings, those beings around us who all want happiness and want freedom from suffering, who want to achieve what the Buddhas have achieved. And imagine that now all sentient beings are feeling so loved because they're, maybe some of them for the first time looking into beings' eyes who truly, truly love them, who truly have no ulterior motives, who only want them to practice, who don't need anything material from them, as we talked about. Feel that love in the space in front of you. And whenever you do your practice, always bring the merit field and always bring sentient beings to be able to expand the amount of virtues and be able to connect your mind to your future goal of connecting to every single sentient being in the universe. All of the practices that we're doing, we should try to make them as strong as they possibly can be in every moment that we're doing them. And if we know what we're doing exactly while we're doing it, they'll be very, very effective. But if we're just kind of winging it and we aren't relying on authentic sources, I've noticed in my life previously when I wasn't is concerned when I was much younger in the authentic sources and kind of winging it. There wasn't really an effectiveness of the practice that there can be if you actually focus on these instructions in the graduated stages that they're presented, because they're presented in graduated stages so that we can realize them. They don't just get realized out of nowhere. They get realized step by step by step by step, first grade to second grade to third grade. It'd be crazy to ask a kindergartner to go into a master's class and say, okay, you should be able to now write a paper at the end of this class. I mean, he wouldn't have developed that skill set to be able to do that already. It'd be incredibly stupid to think that's possible. Likewise, it would be incredibly naive for us to think that without the foundational practices that we find in the Lam Rim, that these higher realizations like Bodhicitta, the wisdom realizing emptiness, the Mahamudra, Dzogchen, the clear light mind, bliss and emptiness, you name it, to jump into those things without having the foundation practice is just self-deception and is just creating another layer of samsara for yourself. Is just creating another world of imagination, like a video game, where you just become like the first person Buddha in the video game. And now you're just imagining that all of this stuff is just a little better, looks a little neater, and you've really not done anything to touch cyclic existence. You've only, made a way to ensure that it will go on. And if you like samsara, then good. But I don't think that anybody shows up at a class on Buddhism because they like samsara. But unfortunately, many, many, many things that are being presented without foundational instructions are just for folks who like samsara. They must be, because they only create samsara. Don't rely on short instructions and think that that's going to be all you need. Beginningless time is a long time, and we've been wrong for a long time. We have these habitual tendencies that are so incorrect. And in order to undo them, we have to really put together a serious operation against them. And luckily, we know how to do that because we have teachers. So now Rajagriha, Vulture Peak Mountain, is in the space in front of us. The second turning of the wheel of Dharma, where the Buddha taught the ultimate truth. The Buddha taught the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena. Imagine Buddha Shakyamuni, Lord Chenrezig, and imagine Venerable Shariputra. And imagine that you're actually there as we read this sutra. And that you're receiving the blessings, and that you're having an understanding that here the Buddha is talking to us about exactly what we need to understand about all phenomena. And we need a good teacher to explain to us what the Buddha is saying, because the Buddha is saying things in this particular sutra in very abbreviated ways. So we need a good teacher. We need to be able to read commentaries to know what the second turning of the wheel of Dharma means, what Buddha Shakyamuni meant when he said that things don't have intrinsic existence. Because the Buddha didn't say things don't exist. Could have just said that. He didn't have to say empty of intrinsic nature or empty of nature. He didn't have to use language like this if he just meant there was no self that exists. But the Buddha didn't come to tell us this. The Buddha didn't come to tell us that giraffes don't exist. The Buddha didn't come to tell us that Mars doesn't exist. The Buddha came to tell us that there's a mode of existence that's different than the one that we think it is. And the one that we think it is driving us crazy. And the only way we can determine that that's true is to engage in what's called ultimate analysis or rational analysis, to see first how things appear to us and how we apprehend them and what we think about things, when we start to cross the line of conventions, and then see if the way that we think about things matches up with the way things really exist. And what the Buddha came to tell us is a big no. You hear a lot of no's in this? Well, the Buddha is saying that no, there's a non-finding of this thing you think there is. But the thing you think there is doesn't exist. The thing that you think there is doesn't exist. But there's a cup there, there's a giraffe there, there's a Mars there that has a mode of existence that you've never even thought of. You've never even thought of it. And when you start to crack that glass a little tiny bit and start to think about it and start to move past conventions and say, what is that chair over there? How does it actually arise if it's over there from its own side? When you start to cross that line and question the way things exist, and then you engage in proper ultimate analysis, and you come to a conclusion that they don't exist right within the object objectively, intrinsically from their own side, separate from mere imputation in dependence upon a collection that serves as its basis of designation. You won't be able to find this thing that you think has these characteristics and qualities that it doesn't have. You won't be able to find these characteristics and qualities that you think intrinsically exist in things that make them suitable for you to be attached to them and for you to hate them and for you to punch them and for you to smile at them. Really? So the Buddha came to say, no, there is no I that exists like you think, or no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell. There's none of these things exist the way you think that they do. But the Buddha tells us that they all do exist. So we have to figure out how there is a mode of existence without intrinsic existence and harmonize that. So the Buddha came to tell us that things don't exist intrinsically. And when we come out of that ultimate analysis the Buddha is doing in this sutra, we have to come to terms with the fact that there are things around us. And how do they exist? What could the mode of existence be if it's not objectively right within the object? If it's not objectively right within me, Jeff? There must be a subjective mode of existence that's coming from my mind, that's placing some sort of critical information out there that's making me think that the things are as they appear from their own side. And this is a very, very subtle concept to understand. You have to be able to first start by saying things exist. This microphone exists, you hear me talking into it, and people on Zoom are listening and they hear words, and people on the other applications are hearing me talk. I exist. There's a Jeff talking to you. I am the subject talking to you. I'm talking into a computer. There's an object. There's a distance between me and the object. There's a distance between me and you. It could be thousands of miles because of technology. I am not you. You are not me. That is not what the Buddha came to say about emptiness. You are you, separate continuum. I am me, separate continuum. But neither of our continuums, neither Jeff nor you, has intrinsic existence. But we both exist. I exist and you exist. And the Buddha, when the Buddha is observing conventional things, the Buddha has dualistic appearances of conventional existence and knows that he's the Buddha and this other thing is not the Buddha. The chair is not the Buddha. The other person who's suffering is not the Buddha. Why? Because the Buddha doesn't suffer. It's separate continuums. So, but these separate continuums that have a nature we've never even come to imagine. And that nature that our separate continuums have make it possible for us to become perfect, make it possible for us to remove the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience that keep us from having complete freedom from suffering and an infinite amount of happiness. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain together with a great gathering of the Sangha monks and a great gathering of the Sangha Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I, dhatu, up to no mind, dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind, consciousness, dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times by means of Prajaparamita, fully awakened to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way: Te ata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Thus, Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Brajaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Galajubene Jodamba Nengushe Duju Nui Nudo Jendru Babalama Yibushinsi Nizundan Kandrozo La Shatse Lo Agasamara Dejandara Zamara Begazamara Dejandara Agazamara Dajandara Zamaraya Beteata Onkate Gate Paragate Parasangate Buddhi Zoha Baba Gonchunji Gai Demiduji Shil Loboduji Meboduji Shiwaduji Dagi Baji Meduveja Danji Sherin Korea Soha Gering Donjaji Jushawada Midun Bedin Andrawada Tumbadu Jimbun Zunzunjuji Dashi Dejan Dendade Lish. I'm doing the Tibetan so we can leave imprints in our mind of the Tibetan language to connect with the Tibetan masters who connected to the Lananda tradition, that connect to the Buddha Shakyamuni. We say some things in Sanskrit to be able to connect with the Sanskrit tradition. Make a mandala offering of a perfect universe for this request for teaching. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Okay, and before we go for refuge, I just wanted to talk a little bit about refuge. So it's just not some formality that we do. We talked about the incredible qualities of the merit field and kind of why, we imagine the merit field. And we talked about refuge, and we talked about what are the causes of refuge in the introduction. We decided that they were fear and faith, and the Buddha is the being that the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha are appropriate objects of faith. And in this case, we're going to speak about the Buddha. Why is the Buddha an awesome object that we should take refuge in? Why do we imagine the Buddha in the space in front of us? Why do we make offerings to the Buddha? What's so great about a Buddha? A Buddha is a being who has only excellent qualities and has gotten rid of every negative quality and any kind of stain of a negative quality that exists. So a Buddha is a perfect being. And this Buddha has perfect love and compassion, perfect skillful means power, and has perfect wisdom. When we look at the excellent qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities, we see that the Buddha's mind has this excellent quality of just caring for others that was created by the blessings and created by the cognitive transformation into a great compassionate mind during the Bodhisattva's path. So the Buddha cares for others so much, cares for every single sentient being in the universe without any kind of bias. And that care it can be utilized in a really, really good way, because just because someone cares about you, it doesn't mean they know how to help you. But the Buddha also has this excellent quality of what's called omniscience, the understanding of the nature of reality, and also the ability to simultaneously understand conventional truth. And Buddha is the only one in the universe who can do that. Even if we are able to become an Arya and see ultimate reality directly, we will only be able to see that ultimate reality at that time. We won't be able to see the conventional truth at that time. And after we're done seeing ultimate reality until we're a Buddha, everything will still appear to be intrinsically existent. And that appearance of intrinsic existence inhibits us. It keeps us from being the most reliable guide in the universe. And the Buddha doesn't have that obstacle. The Buddha has this perfect quality of the mind, of caring for others, and wisdom of everything. So if you have those two components, it's really, those are the makings of freeing everybody from their suffering. And I wanted to look at Lama Tsongkhapa's a couple things. I wanted to look at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment before we read this refuge, and talk a little bit about why the Buddha is worthy of refuge. Why is the Dharma worthy of refuge? Why is the Sangha worthy of refuge? What are we talking about? So I mentioned it briefly in the beginning, that the Buddha is worthy of refuge because of four things that are specifically presented in the Lam Rim teachings, of the four things about the excellent qualities of having mastered fear. The Buddha is completely fearless. So when we talked about what are we afraid of, we're afraid of samsara. And that for Mahayana bodhisattvas are afraid of the cognitive obscurations, afraid of not being omniscient, afraid of the peace of an abiding nirvana. And the Buddha has mastered this. The Buddha doesn't have any of those fears anymore. The Buddha has the ultimate skillful means, knows exactly how to help. And the Buddha has great compassion and wants to help. And the Buddha doesn't need your stuff. The Buddha needs you to practice because he or she only wants you to become a Buddha. That's their whole motivation, for you to be the happiest person, most reliable person in the universe. So let's read a little bit from Lama Tsongkhapa's first great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, and then a quote also from Lama Tsongkhapa's middle stage of the path to enlightenment. The quote is in both texts from Geshe Potawa. So anyway, let's read here. So Lama Tsongkhapa, there are four reasons why the Buddha is worthy to be a refuge. First, he or she has mastered his or herself, themselves. So mastered themselves, be your own master, master yourself. The Buddha mastered himself. And attain the sublime state of fearlessness. Again, fearlessness, freedom from fear of cyclic existence, freedom from fear of the obstructions to omniscience. If he had not attained this, he would not be able to protect others from all fears, just as a person who has already fallen down cannot help up someone else who has fallen down. So this is the first quality. Second, he is in all ways skilled in the means of training disciples. If he were not so, he would not be able to fulfill your needs, even if you went to him for refuge. So if someone wants to help you but has no skill, they're not a very good person to seek protection from. Third, he has great compassion. If he did not have it, he would not protect you, even if you went to him for refuge. So if someone doesn't have compassion for you and says, please help me, and they don't want to see you free from suffering and the causes of suffering, then that's not going to be really a good person to go to look for freedom from suffering, look for an explanation of how to be free from suffering. So this is the third. It says, if he did not have it, he would not protect you, even if you went for him to refuge. And fourth, he is pleased not by material offerings, but by offerings of practice. And this is different. Somebody gives us a gift and we say, oh, thank you so much. Somebody comes and says, I've been really meditating a lot. We don't say, oh my gosh, that's all I've ever wanted you to do for me. That's the only thing I've ever wanted you to do for me, dear, was to tell me that you've been engaging in these practices. Is this what you want from others all of the time in your life? Oh my, that person who cut me off. Anyway, so we need to look at our minds and see the difference between our mind and the Buddha's mind. So it says if the Buddha wanted a bunch of stuff, he would not help everybody. He'd be very selective and only help those who previously helped him or her. So we have to check. Do we gravitate towards, helping those who kind of helped us and connected with us, or are we gravitating towards everyone, seeing no one is near, no one is far, everyone right here, and everyone is near, no one is far, everyone as close as possible to want, and you want to only see them succeed and only have them have happiness and only have them be free from suffering. This being is such an amazing being that we can become. In brief, only one who is free from all fears, who is skilled in the means of freeing others from fear, who has great impartial compassion for everyone and who acts for everyone's welfare, regardless of whether or not they have benefited him or her, is worthy of being a refuge. Since only the Buddha has these qualities and the divine creator and so on do not, he alone is the refuge. Therefore, his teaching and the community of his disciples are also worthy of being a refuge. So when we look at the teaching, we look at the Buddha, we look at the Dharma. Again, we said that the Dharma is the uninterrupted realizations in the continuum of arias and the true cessations and the true paths, true uninterrupted paths and true cessations within the continuum of arias. So when we look at what the Dharma, the real Dharma is, it's that, uninterrupted, path within the continuum of the superior, that actual uninterrupted realization of emptiness. This is the Dharma, or the cessations that take place and their paths of release, the closing of the door that closes out the afflictions and so forth. This is the real Dharma. But we can also say, as Pabunka Rinpoche says, let's just be simple. The Dharma is also the Lamrim, the stages of the path that lead to the state of Buddhahood. So in a very simple way. And then the Sangha, those beings who've seen emptiness directly. Personally, I like to keep it like that. I like to keep those, if I'm going for refuge, I don't want to go for refuge, no offense to somebody who's not seen emptiness directly so much. I mean, I can say, I'll listen to you and guide you, but someone, who hasn't know the nature of reality and hasn't seen it, that I don't want to put all my stock, my faith, I don't want to put myself under their umbrella of protection unless they've seen emptiness directly. So when I imagine the Sangha, for me, I know there's the nominal Sangha. The actual Sangha is what I'm telling you, those Arya beings, Aryas of the hearers, solitary realizers, Bodhisattva Aryas, and Buddha Aryas. Those Aryas are the Sangha. But then we can say the nominal Sangha, and that can be a grouping together of 4 monastics. And then we can also say, which I really don't like, saying, oh, we're Sangha, I'm Sangha, you're Sangha. That just feels silly to me. Like anyone who walks in the Buddhist center and says, I'm a Buddhist. I mean, I'm not going to take refuge in someone who has no idea what Buddhism means. That makes no sense to me. I don't know. Maybe it makes sense to you. I mean, as a refuge, my protector, my protection, I can stretch it out into equalizing, exchanging self with others, and everyone is my key to being a Buddha. But refuge, try to keep it as clean as possible so you're really heading towards a goal that will end samsara for you. And then we find in Lama Tsongkhapa's medium stages of the path to enlightenment, when it talks about the excellent qualities of the Buddha's enlightened activities, I think that there's something really beautiful written here as kind of a lead up to it. And then there's a quote that's actually in Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment by Geshe Potawa. I guess I have to say who Geshe Potawa is. Geshe Potawa is an incredible Kadampa master who is the teacher of Geshe Langri Tamba, the 8 verses for training the mind. So we see this text that we recite, the 8 verses for training the mind. Geshe Potawa was his teacher. Geshe Potawa was also Geshe Sharawa's teacher. Geshe Sharawa was Geshe Chakawa's teacher, who wrote the 7-point thought transformation. So when Geshe Chakawa heard this incredible text by Geshe Langri Tamba called the 8 verses for training the mind from his teacher, he said, I must meet this Bodhisattva. And by the time he got to where Geshe Langri Tamba was living, he had passed away. And then he received teachings from Geshe Sharawa and then wrote the 7-point thought transformation. So Geshe Potawa, an incredibly enlightened master of we consider the old Kadampa tradition, Lord Atisha tradition, passed from Lord Atisha and Master Dron Tompa and Potawa and Sharawa, etc. So you can look into this lineage of the old Kadampa masters and Atishas and Lord Atisha and Master Dron Tompa's influence and so forth with these masters. So it says, okay, so I'm going to have to probably fix a puzzle in a moment. I may not get to much more tonight, but I really wanted to read this to you. So it's okay. This to me is about learning how to practice, learning how to implement these things into our life. It's not about, a formula that I do every single class so that everyone has a formula. This is a formula. My formula is, let me tell you what I've been able to learn from my teachers. And in my meditation every morning, I have some ideas that come about, and let me see if I can share them with you, and maybe they'll help you. This is my formula. So the Buddha benefits all sentience. So this is from Lama Tsongkhapa's Middle Link, Stages of the Path to Enlightenment, translated by Philip Quartico. Very, very beautiful translation. He benefits all sentient beings through the spontaneous and the uninterrupted, exalted activities of his body, speech, and mind, we've just talked about. Insofar as a disciple is fit for guidance, it is impossible for the sage not to give that trainee what is excellent and pull him or her out of trouble. Wow, I know that's what my teacher did. Pulled me right out of the fire, right out of trouble, all kinds of troubles. And that's what Buddhas do. When we're proper vessels, when we have the conditions that are necessary, the Buddha just arrives and just yanks us out of trouble by teaching us stuff that makes sense to us, that we discover in our minds and yank ourselves out of trouble. The Buddha doesn't yank us out of trouble. We yank ourselves out of trouble, but the Buddha arrives to show us how to do so, so we can say the Buddha yanks us out of trouble, pull him or her out of trouble. Thus, it is stated that through the Buddha's actions, the Buddha definitely does everything that is necessary. So there's nothing done that's unnecessary. There's only moves. Imagine if every move you made was the perfect move to help someone, and that was the perfect move to help every being in the universe. Imagine if you could play that kind of, helping. You were that kind of helper. So Geshe Potawa says, this may sting a little bit. If you reflect on the Buddha's qualities again and again, and your conviction strengthens. So why are we talking? The Buddha's so great. He does this, no afflictive obstructions and obstructions to omniscience. It's so your conviction strengthens and you want to become a Buddha. You say, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. Well, what's a Buddha? What's so great about a Buddha? We have to know what a Buddha is. And that's why we think about these excellent qualities, and it becomes a mental basis, according to Panchen Sonam Dragpa, for us actually getting bodhicitta. This part, which is in the section of the small scope, is the part we need to have realized in our mind. It's like a few topics in the small scope. We have to have realized this in our mind to have the mental basis to get bodhicitta, this thing that we walk around saying, he's a bodhisattva, they're a bodhisattva, bodhicitta. But we don't even know what a Buddha is. And Lama Tsongkhapa and Panchen Sonam Dragpa say, if you don't know what a Buddha is, what do you mean you're going for refuge to a Buddha? What do you mean you want to become a Buddha? It doesn't even make any sense. You don't even know what a Buddha is. You don't even know what the 5 bodies, 4 bodies of a Buddha are. You don't know what the 3, 2 bodies, you don't, 1 body. You don't even know what a Buddha is or what's so great about those bodies. Why do you want to become one? Who is one? What's one like? If you reflect on these qualities again and again, your conviction strengthens and your mind stream becomes pure, which gives rise to more blessings. So you're reflecting. It's not saying the Buddha threw something at you. The Buddha threw information at you. You're reflecting, and then you can have your magnificent potential transformed. By doing this, more blessings occur. More potential is transformed. When you have gained certain knowledge about this, you will go for refuge from the depths of your heart. You just will. So do you go for refuge from the depths of your heart? Do you imagine the merit field? Does it bring the hair up on your arms? Do you imagine sentient beings imagining the merit field and imagining just what a beautiful experience they're having because it's from the depths of your heart? Then if you merely train in the precepts, whatever you do will become a practice of Buddhism, Buddha Dharma. So here it's saying if you don't have this refuge, what makes someone a Buddhist? If they go for refuge, that's what makes someone a Buddhist in tenet systems. If they accept the 4 seals of Buddha's teachings, all composite things are impermanent. All contaminated things are of the nature of suffering. All phenomena are the nature of emptiness and selflessness. Transcending sorrow is peace. So if we even say we're a Buddhist, we go for refuge. Well, what's a Buddha? What are we going for refuge? What's the cause of refuge? Who are we asking to protect us? And what does that protection mean? Do they really stand there, guard against our afflictions and protect us? Or do we have to do something? We have to transform our own magnificent potential by relying on the teachings that the Buddha give, and then we can discover things. We do not value the Buddha's exalted, here comes the part that's going to hurt. We do not value the Buddha's exalted knowing even as much as we value an accurate fortune teller or a horoscope or a palm reader or someone who says, I can tell you about your past lives. I can tell you about your karmic wounds. I know you were a soldier. We value an accurate fortune teller more than we do the Buddha. If an accurate fortune teller tells you, I know there will be no bad luck for you this year, you walk away and feel, oh, I feel so happy. I'm so comfortable. And if they say, this year you will have great misfortune, do this, don't do that, then you try really hard to do whatever they've said, put the right rocks in the right place and feng shui the place out, make sure everything smells just right, get some sage. And if you do not accomplish it, you think, oh, I didn't do what they told me to do. And you start to get anxious. Oh my God, this is going to be a bad year. I didn't do the sage. I didn't do the right feng shui. I didn't put the rock out in front of the house. There's not a basket out front. I'm going to be poor. I didn't pick up that penny. That's a sign I'm going to be poor. Really? And we start to get anxious. Oh my. Then it says, this is going to feel good. If the Buddha says, do this and do that, accomplish this and do that, do you take it on? If you do not accomplish it, does your mind get anxious? Do you really care? Do you really care? Do you really want to be happy? Do you really want to be free from suffering? Because a fortune teller isn't going to be able to do that for you. Only a Buddha enlightened being can tell you, and then you can practice something and change and become a better person. And by doing so, become closer to a Buddha. It's your mind that's going to turn into the Buddha's wisdom mind. Yours right now, the one you have, not someone else's, your mind. That mind's just got to be cleaned up. So do you get anxious that you're not cleaning it up? Do you think, oh man, I really should have been doing all those practices? Or are you thinking, oh man, I should have really, done this, gone shopping? To claim the teaching. So if you do not accomplish it, does your mind get anxious? To claim the teachings say that, but owing to our present circumstances, I can't do it right now. So I have to do this instead. I don't have time because of my present circumstances, because I have to work so much. I don't really have the time to practice Dharma. The Geshes practice Dharma. We'll let the Kempos practice the Dharma. I'm a lay person. I can't really practice Dharma. I don't have time right now. There's 24 hours in a day. I work 8 hours, sleep 8 hours, but I'm not going to even pay attention to those other 8 hours because I like to play. I want to have fun. I want to do things that will cause me to have suffering, even though I say I want to do things that make me happy. Really, we really have to look at the way our mind really works. We ignore the Buddha's advice and proceed on the basis of our own discernment. And then when we look for teachers, we find the ones that tell us the easiest path possible. Even though Arya Nagarjuna and Arya Sangha didn't say that was what we should do. Just as Geshe Patawa says here, if we turn our mind inward and examine carefully, we will recognize that it is so true that our normal attitude, one of trusting others' mere words and being content without discernment, is nothing but delusion. Therefore, think about the Buddha's excellent qualities again and again and try to gain as much certainty as possible. Once that develops, you will have arrived at the main point of going for refuge. For a similar certainty will arise during the Dharma received from him and from the Sangha and of those accomplishing that Dharma. There is no way that going for refuge or taming the mind, let alone other paths, will occur without it. So we've been talking about bodhicitta, and I'm always reading different stuff because I want to keep evolving personally. I don't like suffering. I want to be happy, so I keep reading. And I found this in here, and I was thinking, like, have we talked enough about how important it is to know what a Buddha is and to know what I'm going for refuge to? Have we talked about this enough to actually say, oh, I have to develop great compassion, which is where we are at in the 7-point cause and effect for realizing the mind that aspires to enlightenment. What is this great compassion? Well, and how will this great compassion bring about this idea that I want to become a Buddha? What is this great compassion, and how could I ever become a Buddha without it? Because it says here that the Buddha doesn't see some as near and some as far. Buddha's seeing everybody just as someone that he or she wants to remove the suffering of and bring them to the highest state of happiness. So we have to evolve, and luckily we have these teachings, but we have to evolve in a realistic manner that's step by step, inch by inch, and we'll feel it. We'll know it's the right thing once we start doing it in the right order. When we stop going to the highest point of the mountain and thinking that somehow we're qualified to scale it, we won't know what we're doing, and we're going to fall down and get hurt. Kensur Geshe Wandak used to say over and over again that if a pig tries to run behind a tiger is very agile and can jump and can go over so many things. If it tries to be agile like a tiger, a pig's going to break its legs. Likewise, if we try to be agile like highest yoga tantra practitioners or like bodhisattvas or or Dzogchen practitioners or Mahamudra practitioners or whatever, high stuff, 4 classes of tantra practitioners without having a foundation, we're just deceiving ourselves, and we're creating images for our future samsara that will look like deities, perhaps in hell. We see this in the Lam Rim, a being who didn't have these foundational practices and practiced the high teachings and was born in hell in the shape of Yamantaka. So I'm going to read this refuge prayer now that I've given you this background and see if it feels like something to you more. And then we'll just dedicate and end. And I feel really satisfied with the information that I presented this evening, because it was all information that I wanted to go over. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the merit I create by teaching the Dharma, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. And we'll do a concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular, the essential teachings of Venerable Lama Dragpa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, may they be purified by the mantra of Vajrasattva. Om Benza Sato Samaya Manupalaya Benza Sato Seno Bajija Dida Me Baba Zudugaya Me Baba Zubugaya Me Baba Anuratu Me Baba Savasidi Me Pracha Savagama Zuja Me Kitam Chihan Kuru Hum Ha 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 Bhagavan Zava Data Gata Benzama Me Maga Benza Baba Mahasamaya Zava Om Ve. May we always be protected by Baldan Lama, the wrathful emanation of Tara, the Dharma protector. Oh, Jorama 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 Dunjo Galarajamo Romo Waja Daja Dunjo Rulu Hungjo. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. May the supreme jewel Bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase forevermore. In the heavenly realm of Tibet, surrounded by a chain of snow mountains, you are the source of all benefit and help for beings, all-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. A prayer of supplication to Namgyal Khenso Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, my root teacher. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khenso Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible, to your pure body, speech, and mind, and enlightened activities. So we learned about this, the Buddha's excellent qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, and enlightened activities when we look at the refuge section of Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, we'll see the excellent qualities of the Buddha, and we'll see the excellent qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. So you can check that out. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, and music purified by Om Om Om. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you, who placed the complete path to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Atisha, who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar for our ears that elucidated the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now that sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that your teachers passed away and understood the sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate all of you. Please have a good week. Try to do as Guntan Dembe Drome says, to figure out how to put a virtuous imprint every moment of the day into our minds. And if the more of those we put into our minds, the quicker we can have freedom from suffering and a complete infinite happiness where we become the most reliable guides in the universe. May we become Buddhas for the sake of all sentient beings. Thank you.